Hello guys, welcome to Expertisor Academy. Today we're getting into AutoCAD Plugin Development and we're gonna see how to create viewports within your AutoCAD drawing. So these are called named viewports. So again, refer back to the AutoCAD playlist. I'll probably walk you through on some of these basics as well. So now let's quickly get into the code. So this is, I'm actually using the same exercise project, and the GitHub link can be found in the description. So if you don't have the updated project, just download it. Alright, so now this one, I've created a function called create model viewport, and this is again coming from the .NET developer guide provided by Autodesk. So I'm just walking through the examples one by one from that, and then we'll do our custom exercises. Alright, so now first we're getting the active document. So because the viewports that you create is not for every drawing that you open. So if you open one particular drawing, if you set, let's say, 2 verticals, 2 horizontals, whatever the viewport that you set, it is specific to the drawing. So we're going to get the active document and then the document database, and then we're going to open a transaction. So the transaction, we have already seen what is a transaction. The GDBG file, which is the database, needs transaction committed or discarded before you make any changes to the DTBG files itself. So that's why we need a transaction. So we're going to get to the DB and then open the transaction manager and start a new transaction. So now open the viewport table. Remember the object hierarchy if you want, go back to again. So there is a table called viewport table, and that will have list of all the viewports that you have created, 2 verticals, 2 horizontals. If you have some named viewports, it will generally have all of them. So now what we do is we're gonna get the viewport table of the current drawing that is open, and then we're gonna check if at a viewport named test viewport exists. So the reason being is this is an exercise, it's just a very simple one. So we're gonna create a viewport called a test viewport. So first, to make sure that the name doesn't exist, and if you come back and run the program again, if you ran it once, this viewport is already created. So then what happens is it will check the viewport name, and if it already exists, then it wouldn't create it. So that's just to make sure, little cleaner stuff. And then we open the table for write. So this is the viewport table. Now we're going to open it for writing mode. So now you have to set this to write mode. If you open it as, there is also other modes here. So let's say notify read. So if you open it as read, you wouldn't be able to make any changes to the viewport table. So without that, you wouldn't be able to create a viewport, or at least save the viewport changes into the transaction. Okay, so now we're going to use the viewport table record. So that is like a record that you added to the table. If you imagine like an Excel sheet, the table is an Excel sheet, and then every row that you add is a record. So now we're going to put some properties into the record. So we add it to the table, and then so we're going to set it as a newly created object, and then the viewport name. So that's a viewport. It's a named viewport, and viewports is pretty much like a rectangle. You can specify it, like say how big do you want it, whether you want it horizontal and things like that. So right now we're going to specify your lower left corner and your upper right corner. So that's this one, and then add the new viewport table and the transaction. So now so we got our table record. We're going to create it, and from here, so we're going to add the new viewport, which is test viewport, and specifying the lower left corner and upper right corner. So remember, this is actually viewport. We're creating 2 horizontals. So that means there will be one. Let me show you here. So it will be sort of like 2 horizontals. It will be like that. So for that, we need to create first one, which is a rectangle, and second one, that's another rectangle. So that's what we're doing here. So there is one, and there is another one here, and then step through each of those objects in the symbols table, and then open the object for read. So now that's actually the record that we're going to get it, which we created, and then see if there is another active viewport. If so, erase it. So that means the active status is not like there is a viewport named as active. You cannot name a viewport as active. So any viewport, let's say if I open my AutoCAD, so let's say if I have three of these viewports. Now let's say this one, and this one. So now you see there is a blue highlight here that shows this is active. So now if you go to your viewport configuration, so now it shows this one is the active one. So pretty much it actually names one of the viewport as an active viewport. So that's all it does. So now that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to name, we're going to make one of those viewports as active. So you can see it on the screen, and clone the new viewport as an active viewport. So that's another thing, we're just doing it. And then see if one of its viewport, if it's already there, we just pretty much, making sure that the record is deleted and new record is created, and we're going to set it as active. So that is all we're doing here. And finally we update the viewport database, and then commit the transaction. So without this one, whatever the changes you see here, that is not going to be saved. So that means it will create all these things, and then finally if you don't have this line, it will pretty much discard all the changes. So once it's done, so we're going to dispose the whole transaction, and that's commit the final thing. So let's go and fire up AutoCAD, and then let's test it around. So the same way, so every project that you do would make sure that you right click and rebuild or build it. So, and then you check the status here and make sure there is no errors and nothing is on the output, everything is clean. So it has been rebuilt successfully. So let's go and try the program. So netload, use the netload command to load the DLL file. So I'm going to choose the DLL file, make sure the time is all right. So it's the latest build, click open always. So now create model viewport, and then it creates two of these viewports. So I'm going to press this one, try again. So now you see nothing happens. The reason being is if I go to the named viewports, so the test viewport is already created. Let's say if I delete it, and then it creates again. Okay, so if it already exists, now let's say if I try to run the command again, so nothing happens. So the reason being is it's already here. So that is why we have the if loop, to make sure that we are checking whether the named viewport is already, because this has to be unique. And so what happens is, so now from here, if I set to this one, it goes back again. If you want to get the viewport again, go to named viewport and then click on this one and click OK. So let's say if you want to do this programmatically, and probably you'll add another button, and then when you click on it, it creates own custom viewport settings. So all you have to do is just get all the viewport created. That's what we have done. So once that is done, create a button, and then when you click on it, set that particular viewport as an active. And once you've done it, you will see it on the screen, and then you can always go back to this one. So that's it for this one, guys. And if you have any questions, just put it through and subscribe to the channel. And also there is a same playlist. We can also find it in other languages as well if you want. Thanks, guys. Thanks for supporting. Thank you.